And you are listening or watching Gunday Brunch here on YouTube, Spotify, and frickin' finally on Apple Podcasts.
It's finally happening.
It only took what? Whatever episode this is, episode 5 or 6, it only took 5 weeks for Apple to decide that we weren't terrorists and, in fact, to approve our podcast. Now that I've said that,
yeah, it was good.
This will get yanked down. So, and Keith, you don't have to do a sponsor read for this episode because they're going to be included in a banner that's going to appear right now.
Ta-da! Look at that banner, guys.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. But let's get down to business because you guys probably heard our previous episode where we talked about gun movies that we loved. And we're both movie buffs, entertainment buffs, and we like guns. But there's a different kind of gun movie and often an action movie where it should be good. It has the right ingredients, whether those ingredients are actors, technical consultants, cool gear, or whatever, where when you put them in the movie pot and you apply heat, the thing that comes out should be a delicious stew, but what comes out instead is disappointing or frustrating, or it takes you out of the moment. And we're here to bitch about those movies. And Keith, do you want to go first? Because we talked about this offline, and I agree with you 100% about this movie.
I will kick this one off. And my most disappointing movie, I think, to date, and you guys can chime in, and if you want to email in and whatnot, you can tell me I'm wrong. I won't care. This is already recorded. But the most disappointing movie recently to me was The Old Guard with Charlize Theron. And there was so much potential for this movie because if you guys don't know, it's on Netflix. You can watch it. It's got a very average rating from IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, and it's a very average movie. But it didn't need to be average. And what was so disappointing about it was just the lack of attention to certain details. One of them, and you'll notice it right away if you're a gun guy, is the lack of attention to detail with the weapons. Like, they do a lot of goofy shit with weapons. There's the classic, like, missing the iron sights on top of an M4 and everything like that. But that's not the greatest sin, honestly, of the movie in general. But the lack of attention to detail is definitely that greatest sin. And you can see it in the weapons, but you can also see it in the early movie where, like, Charlize Theron's character, Andy, who's actually Andromache, the not Greek goddess, but Greek princess from Troy, way back like 6,700 years ago, or whatever they put together. She's very concerned about the fact that she got snapped in the background of a selfie, and yet the place where she's at has cameras out the ass, cameras out the wazoo. So, like, they make a big deal of her needing to get off camera, but only like one camera, this one chick's camera, just in case she uploaded it to Facebook or whatever. And they keep making that sin over and over and over again, where they point something out and then it's just like they don't cover it for the rest of the, like, she's not obsessive about being off of film for the rest of the movie. She just does it once and then that's it.
It's one of super annoying to me when a movie establishes like a rule, like in the beginning, and then doesn't bother to play by or reference that rule for the rest of the film. Like when
it's sloppy.
Yeah, it's very sloppy.
And one of the second places I noticed this is they go on this first mission and they fly in a Huey helicopter and they go in, and you're starting to get established with this team of characters, this team of immortals. Spoilers alert, guys. This team of immortals is flying in and they're going on their first mission, and it's like one of those missions that no one else can, do and everything like that. And that's the shtick for the movie. The Old Guard is this team of immortals from various eras. Charlize Theron's Andy is the oldest of them, who's like 6,700 years old, but the others are like from the Crusades and a few other earlier periods in history, and they're all really old. And they go in on this mission and they need to do the thing and then they run into a group of other, bad guys, and they get shot to shit and they all get dropped. But then immediately after they get down by like this elite squad of like Delta goons, essentially, all the Delta goons just like immediately fuck off and start talking to each other and do nothing of what a kill squad would be doing after gunning down their target. Like finishing them off, checking them from intel, doing anything. Like they literally just like all turn to each other and have a circle jerk and are just like chilling there while all these people like get back up, and then they all switch to their medieval weapons and start fighting through. And it's just such a sloppy, it's one of those shifts, giant shifts in threat level where 10 seconds ago, these people were actually a problem. They were actually an issue for you. And now, because it's time for, Team Immortal to come in and start kicking ass, like now they're no threat whatsoever. Like they just murdered you, and now they're no threat whatsoever. Like it's so sloppy. And what they could have done instead was keep them a consistent threat. They could have started riling through pockets for intel and all kinds of other like actual after kill stuff, and then have them come back and start waking up again in the middle of it and start getting shot and have to deal with the fact that they're getting shot while coming back to life and have to fight their way out of this. That would have been a much better establishment of their superpower instead of, hey guys, waking up. Oh no, they're waking up.
Yeah, it would have been.
It keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it's just sin after sin after sin of sloppy breaking your own rules right after you establish them, by the way. Breaking your own rules over and over and over again. And it made for a sloppy movie that didn't. This could have been an awesome urban fantasy movie. It could have been freaking awesome. You got this team of immortals that can do cool missions that other people can't, because they basically have to die during the mission. There would be no other way to accomplish this mission. And there was so much potential here for a well-written movie. And then they just lost it in sloppy editing and sloppy just choices because they established something and then they lose it, which is sad to me because I just looked it up because I was curious. They are making a sequel. There is a second part coming for this. And again, it's Netflix, and it did did decently well on the overall scale of things, I guess. So that's all you need to get a sequel. But I really hope they learn from the first one and put this on the editing room floor and the storyboarding floor with more attention to detail, because there's a good movie lurking in there. There's a great movie lurking in there. And all you needed was attention to detail to bring it out, because the premise, long-term badass immortals who go on these awesome super secret missions that nobody else can do, and they're finding other ones of them, every now and then. And you've got like this big bad scientist guy who wants to like unlock this for the rest of humanity, and he's willing to break all the normal moral medical codes to get it. Like that's the premise of a really good movie, but y'all fucked it up.
Really did. And for people who are listening, you should know that the Old Guard is based on a series of graphic novels, which I've heard are fantastic and are a really fun read. So if you'd rather read them, you can absolutely do that. I have a gripe with the Old Guard too. I have all of those gripes, but I have one other related gripe. As Keith's video just went away, which is fine.
My video went away.
And he's back. That's great. But I do have a related Old Guard gripe, and it's specifically that the main character, Charlize Theron, if she's, whatever, like 6,000 years old or some crazy number, she spends a really large portion of the movie bitching about how terrible the world is and how terrible society has gotten. And I wanted to punch her in her stupid face every time she said that, because bitch, you were alive when people shit in the streets and had to wipe their ass with leaves. And now there's literally 70% of the world has access to clean water. And like that alone would seem like a miracle. The fact that like she thinks the world kind of sucks because people still do murders and stuff.
Yeah. People still do murders, but like on the grand scale of murdery centuries, 21st century doing a-okay.
We're doing
really
great. Well. Like she would have lived. This is someone who would have lived through Genghis Khan and is who, killed so many people that he reduced the Earth's greenhouse gas emissions. They even depict her and her, band of immortals fighting in the Civil War, a war we fought over slavery. They depicted in World War I and World War II, which were all really, really bad. And now she's in the 21st century, and she's like, society hasn't gotten any better. I'm like, bitch, when was the last time we did a Holocaust? Like 70 years ago. So calm down. Shit has gotten better.
We're doing better than we ever have. Is that is that the same as doing really well? No, humans still suck, but we suck a lot less.
Yeah, I feel like there was probably a better way to get her disillusioned and unmotivated to save the fact
that you could sit there and be like, oh well, I fought for 67 centuries, literally been fighting for 67 centuries. I'm really tired of fighting. Humans don't seem to learn this really well.
Yeah, that would have been
could have gotten that across without humans suck.
You could have that would have worked. Yeah. So yeah, that would have worked. I was very disappointed with that movie. It was one of those that I put it on, and I'm one of the people why it did well on Netflix is because I put it on in the background, picked up my phone, played on Instagram. When I heard something explode, I would look up, rewind it like 10 seconds to the beginning of the explosions, watch the gunfight, and then go back to my phone. So I can, and what's funny is I can still tell you the broad strokes of the plot, having watched it like that. And the other problem that I had was like in a movie where the main premise is that people are immortal and can't die, but sometimes they can die. So that was confusing. But in the movie where that's the main premise, in many instances, the gun handling was so bad, it broke my suspenders of disbelief, as it were. I was like, come on. Which, speaking of breaking my suspenders of disbelief, that takes me to my movie, which
let's go.
All right. So I really, really wanted to love this movie, and I still like this movie mostly because I'm a fan of the franchise, but Bad Boys for Life was so disappointing as a movie and as a sequel to what I still regard as one of the greatest buddy cop movies of all time, Bad Boys 2. It was just, and it was bad, and it didn't need to be bad, but the parts of it that were bad were a lot of the technical stuff, and that really, like, so I'll set the table for everybody. For if anybody hasn't seen it, spoilers for Bad Boys for Life in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we go. First off, I'm mad at the title. It is they should have done a filler movie on Bad Boys 3 and used Bad Boys for Life on the 4th movie, but that's just me. What really bugged the fuck out of me was Bad Boys 2 does not pretend to be a movie that engages in serious technical firearms handling from the main characters. If you watch the supporting characters, the guys who play SWAT cops and Coast Guard guys and that sort of stuff, their firearms handling is very good, which is sort of what you expect with Michael Bay, where his main characters are, very Hollywood with their gun handling, but the support characters all look like they know what they're doing, which in part is because the DoD loves Michael Bay so much that whenever he's like, hey, can I borrow some guys for a thing? They're like, yes, please, Michael Bay. Go. Shoot our equipment and our troops and our stuff with that pornographic love style that you did in Transformers. And then he does. So in Bad Boys 2 specifically, all of the support characters kind of look like they know what they're doing. Bad Boys for Life, aka Bad Boys 3, they did not. And like the plot's completely ridiculous, the story's insane. None of that matters because it's a Bad Boys movie. I didn't come here for a plot that was like grounded in reality, because If that's what you're looking for, just stop. They start ridiculous in Bad Boys. They stay ridiculous in Bad Boys 2 when two Miami cops do a fast rope insertion from a Coast Guard helicopter into Cuba to rescue a guy's sister. That's Bad Boys 3 just as ridiculous. But what really fucking yanked me out of the movie was there's a scene where Mike Lowry gets shot. Again, spoilers, and he gets shot with a dude. And it's actually one of the cooler scenes in the movie. The dude that shoots him goes by him on a sport bike, does a stoppie, and hoses him down one-handed with a P90, like a full rock and roll P90. That was actually pretty rad. I was like, okay, that was cool. And that was what you expect. Then the problem is they use the P90 as like a technical point to try to track down like the guy who sold the ammo to the shooter, because it's this unique round. And they really try to do the tech jargon, but the tech jargon was written by somebody who had been in the same room as the Wikipedia article about the P90 and the FN57. And so it's so wrong, but it's presented so earnestly that it just ripped me right out of the narrative, because they're saying all of these things that are like adjacent to true, but they're not.
I had that same experience with November Man.
I didn't see November Man.
November Man is actually overall a very phenomenal movie. I give it very high marks in being a phenomenal movie. It's Pierce Brosnan like reconnecting with his daughter, but he's like an international assassin.
Oh yeah, no, I did see that. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And he's going through all this. And I think that's the movie. There is a movie with that plot, but he's going through all this, and at one point he's talking to the female character that, again, I think is his daughter, but I'm not 100% sure. And he's talking about like if he has to shoot her, if he has to kill her, or if someone has to die, and he's like, don't worry, the bullet moves at over 4,000 feet a second. You won't feel a thing. And I'm like, what
the fuck is he shooting?
What ammunition are you using?
Yeah, I want one of those. But yeah, and so that's the thing. Like,
he's clearly in context talking about a handgun.
And that drives me nuts. Like, because we talked about this in our good movies episode, is when the movie needs to play by its own rules, right? Mm-hmm. With Bad Boys, I expect the movie to be ridiculous. And so then when they kind of try to do something that you would see in an earnest technical way, and they get it wrong, mm-hmm. It's not just bad, it's distracting. It takes you out of the movie. Because if they had said, an example of a movie that gets this right is Lethal Weapon 3 with mm-hmm. the cop killer bullets, which are presented as patently ridiculous, but there's never any attempt in the movie to be like, to portray to portray them in some sort of accurate technical way. They're just like, these are cop killer bullets that are coated with Teflon and go through bulletproof vests. It presents you with a rule and it maintains consistency with that rule. Whereas Bad Boys 4, where Bad Boys 3 has a dude do a stoppie on a sport bike, spray somebody one-handed with a submachine gun, which is wildly unrealistic, and then tries to do the hard realism by being like, the FN, they call it an FN Herstall is what they call the gun too, which just hurt my head. Which I know that, and the FN Herstall has like, and then they did the whole like space laser bullets that go through 600 sheets of armor. And I'm like, and they also make it sound like 5.7 ammo is some sort of magical ammo that's really hard to find, which it is now, but
every ammo is magical ammo that's really hard to find right now. We're starting to get over that hump, but we're still not there yet. I still spent $600 on my last case that shouldn't have cost $600.
Yeah.
But you go back to that and it's not a magical round. Ruger makes a gun for it.
Yeah. Ruger with like the People's Firearm Company of Prescott, Arizona, which is what I'm calling Ruger from now on.
The People's Firearm Company.
But no, but yeah, so that's a big thing for me, like about where for me, I just want movies to be consistent to the rules they created, especially when those rules are dealing with a subject that I'm a subject matter expert in. If you start off with like, we love Commando because Commando doesn't attempt to be a serious attempt at gun handling.
No, it doesn't.
And it sticks with those rules the whole movie. We love The Way of the Gun because it does attempt to show realistic gun handling and does so in a way that borders on the obsessive.
So those are two very different segments of gun movies we love. One is patently ridiculous, but knows it and embraces it, and it never tries to be anything else. Again, Schwarzenegger with that ridiculous Mac 90 AK, like hitting everybody from the hip and never running out of ammo, patently ridiculous. Why doesn't it bother us? It's consistent with their rules. Versus Bad Boys going from, all right, we're bad boys, to now we're going to take this little side jaunt and be CSI for a minute.
Yeah, I didn't want, if I wanted to watch CSI, which I don't, but if I did want to watch CSI, I would just do that. I come to Bad Boys for explosions and explosion. I'm there for the explosions.
Explosions.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here for explosions.
Buddy cop banter, explosions.
I want to watch a guy get shot in the head and then fall on a landmine and blow up. That's what I want, because that happened in Bad Boys too. So Keith, are there any other gun movies or action movies that just did, maybe they weren't terrible, but they had a scene or something that just drives you nuts?
There's not a movie coming to mind right now, but I have to shout out a TV show, and it was a TV show that started fantastic and unfortunately devolved. And we're going to have to cut here because I'm drawing a complete blank on the name.
And that is Battlestar Galactica, the reboot.
Battlestar Galactica.
Which I loved, but...
Got it. And that is Strike Back.
Strike Back. Unironically love Strike Back right up until the main actors leave and they've replaced them with the new cast.
Exactly. They were fantastic. And you can tell these guys trained, and the girls, the whole cast, the whole main cast trained with live firearms on live ranges and actually trained with dudes and people who knew what they were doing, because their handling is spot on through the first like 4 or 5 seasons. It gets a little weird just because like season 1, as it was presented here in the US, was actually season 2, because there was like a pre-season with the guy who dies in season 1.
I'm a huge Strike Back fan. I will explain the whole chronology for people right now.
Go for it.
So in the United States, Strike Back seasons 1 through 5 or 1 through 4 are kind of one concrete story arc. Like that extends through these 4 seasons. There's always a big bad in each season, but it's the story of I'm going to say the actors' names, not the characters' names. Philip Winchester, which is the best name for an action movie actor.
It really is.
And then the guy from the terrible 300 sequel. So they're the main characters. Strike Back.
Stonebridge and
Scott and Stonebridge. Yeah. Damian Scott, criminally.
Yep.
I can't believe I forgot that. That was my Xbox gamer tag, was Sergeant Damian Scott. But anyway, so those first 4 seasons are kind of their story arc. The season 1 of Strike Back is in the States. It's called Strike Back Origins. So I've actually never seen Origins. Didn't watch it. I watched it. 1 through 4.
It lived up to 1 through 4. It lived up to the Stonebridge and Scott arc. It really.
I'll have to check it out. So, and then after the Stonebridge and Scott arc, the show actually got canceled. Then it got uncanceled by Cinemax, and they brought in all new cast, all new characters. That the technical, and it just wasn't as good. And you could tell that the technical production fell off a freaking cliff. Like whoever they had for consultants on seasons 1 through 4 was like, I'm good on Strike Back. I'm not coming back for seasons 5 through 7 or whatever it was, which.
Or they clearly were like, we don't need that guy. We can figure it out.
Yeah, which I will say I did watch all of them, but the seasons with the new cast, which they grow on you and they get good chemistry and they work well together as a cast, but the technical stuff and the also the quality of the special effects all went downhill for those later seasons. So I 100% agree with you that that show started out great. It had very like the first two seasons especially you can just you can smell the 1990s SAS roots of whoever
Mhm.
your consultants were. You're like, oh, he's got that stockless AK jammed out against a sling. I'm like, how delightfully authentic
Yes.
from 20 years
Yes.
ago.
So nice. And then
It
and then
was,
they get to a point where it like actually makes sense and he flips out the stock instead of just leaving it in the whole time. And you're like, yay, decisions.
yeah, no, I
Decisions
really,
were
really
made.
enjoyed the actor Philip Winchester in I think one of the season, I forget if it was two or three, performs probably the best on-camera pistol reload I have ever seen, where he is shooting at a car and he goes bap bap bap, goes to slide lock with his Glock, moves his concealment garment out of the way, does a slide lock reload and starts shooting. And I was like, if you can't, if you're listening to this, I was just face like mouth open, just oh my god, that was the best on.
Jaw dropping.
It
The
was the best.
handling on that show was fan freaking tastic. I put it up there with
It
with
was the best I'd seen until John Wick. Like in
yeah.
terms of technical gun handling, it was probably the best that I had seen on screen up until John Wick. It was so good. Back when I owned a gun magazine, we used to do features, the guns of blah blah blah. And my favorite one to this day is still the Guns of Strike Back. We actually worked with Cinemax. They got us release, like they got us like pre-release DVDs and stuff, PR images and all kinds of fun stuff. Cause that was I love that show. I am so glad you brought that show up because that show was fucking great.
It was amazing. And I'm so upset that they didn't maintain that consistency. Like I'm happy to hear that the characters did well, that the actors did well in portrayals in the later seasons, so that at least there's that redeeming storytelling quality to it. But the fact that you had not only good character chemistry on screen in the early seasons, but you had good technical proficiency so that guys like you and I could look at that and go, yes, this is a TV show, but there's nothing that's going to knock me out of my immersion right now. My suspension of disbelief is fine. Like, I don't care that like a disgraced Delta operator would never be dark recruited again. Like, he's persona non grata. You wouldn't ever give this fucker a job. And all that, like it's got that James Bondian element of like flying by the seat of your pants, and there's a lot of sex in the show and everything
Oh
like
yeah.
that. Um,
Note, do not watch this with your kids in the room. There are
nope.
hella titties. Like they're like the side plot of the first three seasons is Sergeant Scott's character banging everything that walks. Good guys,
Literally
bad guy.
everything.
Literally. I mean, the show did get its start on Cinemax, and it was in that transition phase where
Yeah.
Cinemax was like, are we titties or are we like real TV? And they were like, let's do both. Let's do titties and real TV. Not
Right.
mad at it. Which I will close this episode out with not a show specific gripe, but a general gripe that I have with, and this occurs so often in movies, TV shows, all kinds of stuff. But I do not know why Foley guys who do sound in post, make every gun click when you move it.
Right. They're
Like,
not
like
that noisy.
guns are not it dry, and it's so annoying. Like if you've got like a dude and he runs into a room and there's like 30 bad guys with AK-47s and they all point their AK-47s at him, I guarantee you there's going to be a cacophony of clicking noises that they put into that scene, when in reality, unless you're racking the bolt or taking it off safe, the AK is not going to make noise. It's not going to, like, me bringing an AK or an AR-15 or a shotgun from the low ready to the high ready and just aiming it does not generate any sounds.
And
Pointing a
they know
Glock
this.
at someone
We have
does
seen
not
shows
generate
and
sounds.
movies, and when the characters are trying to be sneaky, no clicky noises. They're all just
Right. But then when it's time to like emphasize that a gun is being pointed at somebody, clicky noises. And I get it. I understand that there's a cultural association with a hammer cocking or a shotgun being pumped that has this guy means business. But when a cop whips out his Glock and it goes for no reason, I'm like,
Yep.
why? Why did you do that? There was no reason for that. He's pointing a gun at him. I feel like we have entered a fairly serious moment. I
Yep,
think we
that
did emphasize
drama
the clicking
intensified.
noise.
We didn't need a gratuitous amount of noise. Gratuitous shotgun cocking is another like universal sin. And one of the funniest, it's still irritating, but it's so ridiculous that it's funny, is wrong gun noises. Like a revolver making a shotgun noise, or
One of my favorite one of those wrong gun noises is in the early edits of so you would have to either have one of the laser discs or one of the pre-special edition VHSs to see this of Star Wars, specifically A New Hope. In the scene where they're in the catwalk and Luke and Leia are shooting across at the stormtroopers, there is a scene, for whatever reason, Leia's gun turns into a 38 special. Like it does the gun itself, but it goes from making pew pew laser sounds to blam blam noises. And I mean, they edited that out in the special editions, but it was so jarring that it was the sort of thing that my dad, who's not like a super movie buff, would notice. He would be like, why does that sound like my work gun all of a sudden? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just watching the space guys. So stuff like that. I can excuse it more in the 1970s than I can today, where you know what sounds guns make. You know that Glocks don't go click, click when you point them at people. So that is...
You have 2 decades of recent experience that you can draw on, and a bunch of very easy to find consults to pull in and say, hey, did we do this right? Did we do it close enough? Did we make any serious errors?
Yeah, literally every movie should hire Mike Grasso as their technical consultant, or me, but I'm not in that business. Right. But if you want to pay me to do, hello, movie people, if you would like to give me money to tell you what noises guns should make, I am available at caleb.giddings@gmail.com. Send money.
I am also available. Hire any of us, really.
Yeah, really. Like you could swing a sack of cats at SHOT Show and pick the 5 people that it hits, and they would do a better job than you get sometimes. And they would probably do it for cheaper just because they would be so excited.
They'd be like, hey, I get to work on a movie. I'll do it for a ridiculously lower sum than the last guy who you were grabbing for this consult. Right. I just want to be in the credits.
Right. I just want to be like, I have an IMDb page already. It's pretty lame right now, but I've got one. So, we could pad that sucker a little bit, guys. I'm just saying. All right, Keith, you got anything else for this week?
I got nothing else.
All right, guys.
So we will see you folks next time.
Yeah.